Pique the Pickens! Pique the Pickens! Pique the Pickens!
All right, Steeler fans, welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Preview here on the Steel Curtain Network. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by Bryan Davis and Dave Schofield. Bryan, what is going on?
Wow, I cannot believe February is almost over. This is insanity to me. It feels like we were just celebrating Pick It a Pickens on Christmas Eve, and now that's 2 months later. Wow, where's it going?
It's going quick, that's for sure. Dave, what's up?
Yeah, I agree with that. My wife's like, "Is it really March next week?" I'm like, "It is," but I'm all right. I'm the idiot that right before we go on try to take a drink of hot tea and burn my tongue, but that's okay. Sorry, I'm looking a little bit bare here tonight. I don't have it all set up yet, and I really messed up because I had a gift for one Jefferson Bartholomew Hartman. You know, because of course part of it you could say because he was turning 40 years old.
I'm a man! I'm 40!
I'm sorry, I just can't help it. I'll do that anytime I can. But I can't say it's just because of that, because I already got Bryan his. But had to help you out, help you get some good stuff for the background there, Jeff.
Nice.
So I got the replacements.
Nice.
So I'll get that to you as soon as possible. I'll get mine up. Bryan will get his. But we're transitioning. We're ready to go.
Well, the if you see behind me this way, the other flag is gone. So the Steel Curtain Network, and that's kind of where we want to start this show. Uncertainty is oftentimes difficult for a lot of people. The unknown is, well, it's the unknown. No one knows for sure what's going to happen, and there can be a lot of people that that's not their best. And when they think about the Steelers, they automatically think of doom. And there were people that when we found out that Vox Media was dropping our podcast, they immediately thought, well, that was a good ride, guys. Like, it was a lot of fun. But sometimes an uncertain future doesn't always equate in doom. And what we want to do is give you a quick little rundown on some changes that are happening, both with the three of us, I guess you could say on a personal level. A new venture is beginning. We'll explain that. On our lineup, we're welcoming a new show. We're moving a couple around, so we're going to explain that as well. We'll start with the Steel Curtain Network and what we're making changes. I'll let Bryan explain that before we talk about the bigger venture.
Well, I'm really this is bittersweet for me because about 2.5 years ago, two Australian gentlemen came to me and said, "Hey, Bad, we love an opportunity. We're fans of the show. We'd love to see what we can do." And I got to talking, and they asked, "Hey, what should we call the show?" And I'm like, "Hey, you're in Australia. Let's call it Touchdown Under." And so Matty Peverall and Mark Davison came to me, and they sent us a demo, and I sent it to Dave and Jeff as soon as I got it. And those guys were like, "That's good enough for us. Let's put it on today." And we did. And then the War Room came out of it. And these guys, if you listen to that demo now, they'd be embarrassed, but it was good. But that's how much they've grown. And they've done really well. And they came to me about a month ago and said, and you could tell they were nervous to talk to me. And they were like, "We'd like to go out on our own, do some more stuff on YouTube. Can we keep the touchdown under name?" I'm like, "Absolutely. You guys made that a thing." And they thought, "Well, we thought you'd be mad." And I'm like, "No, guys, I'm not mad. To me, I'm so proud of where you came." And I told them at that point that there's someday that they're gonna want to leave and they're want to expand their wings. So to me, it's baby birds leaving the nest, and I feel like a proud papa, and I'm so glad for them. So there's gonna be opportunities. We're gonna invite them here again to be guest on the network. They're gonna invite us to be. It's on the network, so it's something that I'm really excited about. Check out their show tomorrow, as it's going to be the last Touchdown Under. We just had the last War Room on Wednesday as well. So that's going to happen, but that's going to, with the War Room leaving, Jeff, that's going to open up probably a spot. And I'll let you talk about that because I think we're filling it in a fantastic way.
Yeah, so those that listen to my Let's Ride podcast know that I've had this gentleman on my Monday morning conversation on more than once. And I don't know why he decided to come back, but he did. And I was like, "Hey, Mr. Jim Wexell, you already do a podcast. Would you all be interested in bringing your show to our network?" And he said, "Let me talk to my co-host." And the answer was yes. Now that's going to be an audio only podcast, but Jim Wexell and Steel City Insider, we are going to officially have on the Steel Curtain Network an insider, meaning someone that's actually in the locker room, could ask questions at press conferences, can talk to players. We're going to have their podcast, Jim Wexell's podcast, and his co-host, which will not be one of us. It's his own spiel, which is fine. They'll be on that Wednesday noon spot starting next week. And so that's really exciting. Jim's a great guy. He's a great writer. If you've never read his books, he does a very good job. He's a great storyteller. So I hope that everyone will check out that show. Again, that's taking over for the War Room on Wednesdays at the noon slot, audio only. So wherever you get your podcast, you can search Steel Curtain and you'll probably find us, whether it's Behind the Steel Curtain or whether it's the Steel Curtain Network. So Dave, anything to add to any of that before we move on to the next venture?
Woohoo.
Yeah. I'm excited for Jim's show because I know Jim's a great guy and he's not going to, he doesn't, I guess he doesn't,
he doesn't hold back. He puts it out there. I mean, much respect that he says it how it is, and that's how he's been every time you've had him on a Monday morning conversation. Always enjoyed those. I got to review both of his last two books in Palomalu and On the Clock, and enjoyed them both. And did a write up for him at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, and I'm really looking forward to hear him on the audio side.
Yeah, I had to pay for the book. Well, my wife did, got it to me for my birthday, but I'm still reading it because I haven't had time. And then I really got into it a couple days ago, and now I'm in love. I cannot put it down. I just can't wait to finish it. And having a guy like Wex on the network is going to be fantastic, except for when he finds out that I'm going to be bugging him every week. Hey, you want to publish my book?
They'll say, here's my publisher's number. I don't do that. So on top of that, not much else is changing with our lineup, not in the off season at least. But we do want to wish the Australians good luck in their new venture. We want to welcome Jim Wexell to the team. We're very appreciative of him for doing that and his co-host. But also, we want to also make a quick announcement that when we found out that we were getting our podcast network cut, well, so did a lot of other people. And this is MLB, NBA, NHL, college, soccer, you name it. There were podcasts out there that got cut. And I was talking with Bryan, and eventually Dave warmed up to the idea and said, why don't we try and give these people a home? And so what we decided, a long story short, we ended up partnering with a very, very great guy. And we started our own company called the Fans First Sports Network. Fans First Sports Network. SCN will be a part of the Fan First Sports Network. So will all these other teams. 50 networks are joining us as of March 1st. Hopefully, fingers crossed, barring something changing. And so let's say you're a fan of the New York Yankees. We're also going to have a podcast on that network for the Yankees as well. If you're a Pirates fan, I don't know. There's not many of us, but yeah, we'll have a Pirates podcast. If you're a Penguins fan, same thing. We're going to have those teams represented. So it'll be a good opportunity for you to check out some of that stuff. But again, that uncertainty has led us to what we feel is a very good opportunity for us to continue to grow. And Bryan, I'll let you and Dave talk about that briefly before we move on.
Well, I'm going to do this, Jeff, with a movie quote, and it's from one of my all-time favorite movies. And it's the Shawshank Redemption, when after Andy Dufresne escaped and Morgan Freeman, I'm going to do my best Morgan Freeman. I'm sure it's bad, but behind the steel curtain, who crawled through a river of crap and came out clean on the other side.
That's true.
500 yards, nearly half a mile.
Yes. Of the foulest stench.
Yes.
Dave, anything to add before we move on?
It's exciting. I wasn't sure. I'm like, can the numbers work? I was the person who was like, I want the numbers to work. If you've listened to Stat Geek, you know that's who I am. And once I found out that the numbers could work, and not only work but work well, I was like, let's get to this. These guys have me set up that I get to crunch numbers a lot. So I'm busy, but very happy with everything going forward.
So great one you asked about the Cavs. We don't have a Cleveland Cavs site just yet.
There is Ohio State.
We do have Ohio State, yes. And I want to say the Guardians were one of the teams that we're going to have to fill that spot. I'll double check.
Yeah, we are not getting the Guardians.
That's correct. They decided to stay independent, but that doesn't mean we won't have one. We're going to fill out all of these, and eventually we'll have all 32 NFL teams, every Major League Baseball team, all on the about the Red Sox. Yes,
yep,
we'll
Red Sox are in. They're asking two different ones that I helped.
There you go.
Get involved. Although I didn't do as much of that as you guys did. You guys did those, but I just crunched numbers.
Fans First Sports Network. And we'll also have some national shows. We'll have NFL type shows. We're going to have Major League Baseball shows, all the major sports teams. We're going to have affiliates on. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a little bit, it's going to be fan driven. And so it's not going to be like ESPN. We're not going to try and sit there with suits on. Like, that's not us. You guys know that. So, Brian, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, you name it, we're going to try to have it, including MMA and professional wrestling.
Yeah.
That's we're gonna look at all of those things. So
no stone unturned
to give you everything you want. And for those of you excited about Ohio State, I've got bad news from you. We're bringing in Michigan too.
We do have Michigan and Notre Dame.
That's true. And all I want to say is, when it comes to you all and what was behind the steel curtain and now the Steel Curtain Network, that it's chugging on. What you're used to is what it's going to be. Other than the couple changes that we had going on anyway, it's really not going to change you all at all. We're going to keep our focus. We're still focusing on this content here, the Steelers content. That's who we are. That's what we do. And we just wanted an opportunity to still bring it. And in order to have that opportunity, we kind of had to make that opportunity. So we did.
Yeah. And I know Brian Brown said, hopefully y'all don't stop what you're doing. No, like the Steel Curtain Network is going to continue chugging along.
That's the whole reason we did it.
Yeah. It's the main driver for this. And
yeah.
So, for sure. I just want you all to know that you might see us talking about some other things. We might reference other shows. When we do like Know Your Enemy during the season, you might see other podcasts from our network now joining that show to talk about upcoming opponents. So it's going to be a good thing. We don't want to spend a ton of time on this, even though we already have, but still wanted to keep everyone in the loop. This is the show that we always kind of talk about that type of stuff. So keep an eye out on that. Brian, do we have Michigan State? Wasn't that one of those weird ones? I can't remember if that was you or the other Brian.
No, we don't have Michigan State yet. We would love,
not every college had a podcast.
That's
right?
true. So sometimes we have to start a feed.
Yeah.
So, and that's going to be our job to do, to reach out to, it's going to be fun because we're going to listen to podcasts and see who we can bring in and other podcasts and say, would you like to join our network? So, I mean, I feel like it is going to be such an amazing adventure for us at this point in our career. But like Jeff said, like Dave said, Behind the Steel Curtain, which is now Steel Curtain Network, is going to be, that's our main priority too. And don't forget, we are still Behind the Steel Curtain on the editorial side.
Yeah.
So Dave, you can give me that Behind the Steel Curtain flag.
What have I said?
What were you going to say, Jeff?
That website still exists.
It still exists.
So I should put that flag up too.
Yeah. I'm not putting that flag up.
You know what? I will put that flag up while I'm writing, and I will put up the SCN when I'm podcasting.
There you go. I'm not doing all that. Okay. Let's get talking about the Steelers stuff. So, well, I kind of want to take a break, and then we'll just talk about the Steelers after, and we can just advertise it that way. So let's do that. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. All right, Steeler fans, that's what you want to hear. You want to hear us talking about the Steelers. That's what we're going to deliver. The Pittsburgh Steelers, the uncertain future that a lot of people, when they think about, well, is Kenny Pickett the guy? Or, well, is the defense going to be able to fill the holes? Meaning the vacancies, whether it's the free agents, the cuts, who's going to be a cap casualty. Everyone always seems to think that it's going to be doom and gloom. And it just so happens that my Friday Let's Ride is on some of the worst free agent acquisitions in Steelers history. So that's not a good
right all the time.
Not a good segue. Not a good segue. But it doesn't always mean it's going to be bad. Not Bryan Anthony Davis, but not good. So I guess let's try to put a positive spin on this thing. There are going to be free agents that leave. There are going to be players that maybe the team wants to acquire, but they're not going to be able to for salary cap purposes and things like that. What makes you optimistic about this team heading into the offseason? We'll start with you, Bryan.
I cannot discount that the way that this team ended 2022. And, I know we're going to see it. Well, hey, the schedule wasn't good. But then I see last week, and we had it, and Dave and I talked about this on the week that was, the Steelers had the second toughest schedule in 2022 based on how all those teams performed. So, it's very easy to say, okay, you beat the Falcons, you beat the Panthers, beat the Raiders. But some of those teams were really coming on at the end, especially the Panthers. But I really think that was just a starting point. And I'm also excited about the fact that a lot of guys got their feet wet too. I am a big proponent of going ahead and boasting about that leap from year 1 to year 2. And I think you're going to see a lot of it. There's some places on the defense that we're really worried about. And I get that because there's free agents. But the offense is pretty much untouched. And I know there's some ways, there's some things that you could say about that as well. But with the fact that Omar Khan knows how to find money in the couch cushions, and there's going to be a free agent brought in. He's also going to find ways to bring back some of the free agents, not all of them, but there's going to be turnover because that's the way that the NFL is now. 1979 is never going to happen again. And when I say 1979, that was a full homegrown team. Nobody on that Super Bowl team wore another jersey to that point. And that's absolutely amazing. Most of them were drafted. 6 of them were free agents, street free agents, undrafted. So I'm really looking at this now for the Steelers and saying that last year was the beginning of the rebuild. But when you're 9-8, that's a pretty good rebuild. That means that you still ended up 9-8 and you have a chance to go forward. So I'm really excited about where they can go. I don't expect them to go backwards.
Dave, what about you? What makes you optimistic?
Well, Bryan said a number of things there. I am optimistic because, you had to kind of had concerns with the offense. The offense started to grow. And the only, the most significant piece that's not under contract for next year is Zach Gentry. So, I mean, when you really look at the starters, so you really have to be encouraged by that at least that's still together going. Now, the strength of the team was defense, and that's not the same situation. But that's right. Bryan brought up about how the Steelers had the second hardest schedule last year. That was based on DVOA from Football Outsiders. That's their one metric that, with got to try to, even I look it up 17 times and then can't remember what exactly what the letters are because they're letters and not numbers, but that's a whole different story. But the one thing that bothers me is Bryan kind of brought it up, about beating the Falcons, beating the Panthers. Steelers fans are going to be the first ones to complain that they lose to teams that they should beat. And they should have beat the Panthers. They should have beat the Falcons. But then when they beat them, they're like, well, all they did was beat the Panthers and Falcons. You're going to be really upset if they don't win those games. And you say, oh, the Steelers lose too many of those games they should win. But then when you win them, you want to discount them. You know what they did? They were supposed to win. They did win. Very good. Okay. Does it matter if they won? Do style points matter? No, style points don't matter. Wins, losses, records. Now, it can also it can help you build on future games based on how you're playing overall. But I think the most encouraging thing here is that, do the Steelers have a lot of cap room right now? No. Can they have a lot of cap room? Yeah. They just have to make the moves. Now, why haven't they made some of these moves? Because they haven't had to yet. They haven't had to. And just think how many years there were in there where the Steelers were at this point, and they were already having to cut players because they were so far over the salary cap. They haven't put themselves in a bad situation yet. It's not like they're in a perfect situation, but I think they're going to be much better than where they are right now before too long, so they can do some things. And when you think about that, even when the Steelers were in trouble in years past, they still found a way. I always wanted to ask with what money they had to make that money. Well, the Steelers have the opportunity to do that this year. So that's encouraging. And so far, I mean, all we've had is after the draft with Omar Khan. I've loved what he's done since then. Larry Ogunjobi, signing Minkah Fitzpatrick quickly, going ahead. Some people don't like that the Steelers, gave the deal to Deontay Johnson. But if you look at that deal, they did not break the bank for him. They did not pay him based on being one of the very best wide receivers in the NFL. He's actually, paid accordingly. So there, for that reason, I'm just encouraged that they could fill in the gaps moving forward.
So there's a lot of things that I find to be optimistic about this offseason. First is that none of their key players are dealing with major surgeries in the offseason. Yes, Chris Wormley, he's going to be a free agent. I know he had an ACL tear, but I'm not counting him because right now he's not under contract with the team. But you think about like Pat Freiermuth having that scare in week 18 last year against Cleveland. And if he would have had structural damage done to his knee, that would have set him back big time for 2023. You think about TJ Watt not really having to have surgery on his pectoral muscle. Like that's huge. And these guys are going to be able to get a full off season in. You think about the rookies, even those second-year players, Najee Harris, Pat Freiermuth, they're only going to have the experience now of a full season. They're going to get an off season. I'll tell you what makes me really optimistic about the offense. Everyone loves to just have that knee-jerk reaction. I know we do that article after games, and I know that we talk about that in the post-game show, but the one knee-jerk thing, you hear Pat Freiermuth go on Ben Roethlisberger's podcast and say, well, we didn't have any hots and all this stuff, like meaning they had no hot routes or, the calls at the line of scrimmage. Do you really think that Matt Canada is going to continue with that? If he trusts Kenny Pickett and has an entire offseason with Kenny Pickett, if that's the case, I don't see any way that Mike Tomlin, being a football junkie that he is, would ever keep that guy around. I think it's only going to expand. So when I had Nick Faribaugh on my podcast this past Monday, he was very much an anti-Matt Canada guy. I asked him straight up, do you think anything could change? And he said, no, not really. I'm sorry, I don't believe that. Yeah. And this is, for me, there's no way with Kenny Pickett starting in week 4 at halftime, developing, and then the improvements you saw just after 1 week off in week 9, the bye week, that an entire offseason where what I'm learning about Kenny Pickett, because I didn't know this, the dude's a football junkie. Took like 3 days off. He's already back in the weight room. We've got videos of him back in New Jersey with his quarterback coach, or down in Florida, one or the other, throwing footballs, working on timing. I guarantee you he's working on the offense. This guy's going to get it if they trust him enough to do it. Now, I just think that for me, the offense, I think, is going to be okay. They're set up for a really comfortable offseason when it comes to if they want to add to the offensive line. They don't have to. They can run it all back if they want, but they can.
Or they can.
You can add pieces on offense. On defense, well, there's some gaps they're going to have to fill. That's where it's a little bit shaky for me. Brian, I want to ask you real quick, which is the biggest gap on defense that you think needs to be filled?
Wow, that's
Let's start
tough.
with free agency too. Let's start with free agency because that's what's up first.
I really think that here's the thing. I actually feel that inside linebacker is a gap, but I can go to every single position on that defense and say that it needs some shoring up because of depth or the future. I'm worried about the secondary. I'm worried about all of that. So it's really hard for me to answer that. But when I look at free agency and I look at the draft, I feel like I'm doing a Dave answer here. I feel like they could bring whoever they bring in. I feel like with the picks that they have, I think everything's going to be addressed, and they have a system. So we're going to know about the draft when they pick somebody in free agency. So if they bring an inside linebacker in, one of those guys in to go ahead and fill a spot, then you're going to see them more likely to address the defensive line or the secondary. And I mean, it could go, there's so many combinations, but everything needs addressed in some way because we just don't know what's going to happen with a guy like Cam Sutton. If he signs, if they bring him back, then your cornerback situation that kind of changes those mock drafts. That's saying the kid from Oregon, Christian, or bringing in Joey Porter Jr. or Cam Smith from South Carolina. That's all going to change if Cam Sutton comes back, or if they pull the trade for Jalen Ramsey, which they're not going to. But I'm just saying, I mean, so the roadmap is going to come that way.
So, did you answer the question?
No, I really didn't. I Dave it.
There you go. Dave, go ahead. Well, what about you? What do you think? Dave,
Seattle
defense.
has two lost. No, on defense. I mean, Bryan is right where there's basically holes that need filled in across all the different position groups. There really is. Talked about inside linebacker for a long time on the Scobro show, and it's just because they have players, contracts that are finishing up, and it's just kind of the cycle that this year happens to be, that it's mainly on the defense. But what normally happens is the Steelers have those things. They bring some of their own back. They sign some outside guys, and with the exception of 2021 when the cap bottomed out, they've shored everything up before the draft. So there's still a lot of work to be done, and I'd like to say, I wish it was this guy, I wish it was that guy, I wish it was the other guy. We'll just have to sit back and see. Like I still love the example of back when the Steelers picked up, I think it was 2020, and it was, the Steelers don't have a tight end. They don't have a tight end. They got to draft a tight end with their first pick in the second round. What are they going to do? Then the Steelers signed Eric Ebron in free agency, and they didn't even draft a tight end because of that. So it just kind of changes everything. So yes, there's a lot of question marks, but there's also time until the Steelers have to have all those question marks filled in.
Yeah, for me, I think if I'm trying to give a positional answer here, I think it's the defensive front. Like if I'm saying, okay, we need to address one position first, which one is it? I'm looking at the defensive front. I think that whether it's Larry Ogunjobi, I know that Jeremy Betts has given another name. I think it's a guy from Minnesota. I'm not sure who it is. He's kind of like a nose tackle / defensive lineman. For me, give me the defensive line. Get that situated first. Then work your way off of that. And when you think about, I know Bryan brought up the draft. With the draft, this is a very deep cornerback class. I feel comfortable they could maybe get a player, whether it's pick 17 or pick 32, who's still a very good caliber player. But that defensive front, I wrote an article for the website that ran today, Thursday, and it was really kind of eye-opening to me because I combined this with Andrew Wilbar and Jeremy Betts. They did their 7-round mock draft. Jeremy did it, and they had talked about it. And Andrew Wilbar said he was struggling to find 100 players that he felt were like highly draftable. And I was like, man, that says something. And then I think it's Matt Miller of ESPN said he only has a first-round grade on 19 players in this class. And so I'm thinking, well, crap, the Steelers draft 17th. Like, what the heck are they going to do? He had 0 interior linemen, only 1 defensive lineman in this draft class that he has graded as a first-rounder. When I look at this tells me that if the Steelers scouts are viewing it the same way, they're going to realize that free agency is going to be the way that they're going to have to address some of these positions. When I see only 1 defensive lineman on the list, and that's guy that's ranked 3rd overall in their overall rankings, he's not going to be there at 17. They're going to have to fill that elsewhere. Whereas cornerback, there's multiple other positions that they are looking for. There's multiple, but man, I think the defensive line is priority number 1 on the defensive side for me. Not to say that there's only 19 players that are good in this draft class. Only 19 players he had a first-round grade on. Bryan, what are your thoughts?
I have 2 thoughts here. First of all, that means that you probably don't want to trade down in this draft if that's what you think, if there's not that many first rounders. But I don't agree in first round grades and everything, because you know what? Great. You only have 19 first round grades, but does that mean that everybody that's picked in the second round is going to suck? Everybody in the last part of the first round is going to suck? No. How many third rounders have we seen make it? How many sixth rounders have we seen make it? That's why it's a 7-round draft. And, these guys come up, and if they're developed right, they're fine. A lot of people have already, I've made the joke that you could go ahead and say that don't even think about that second pick, that first pick in the second round, because everybody's saying it's the kid from Baylor, the nose tackle. And everybody's saying that already. That doesn't mean that's who they're going to get. But what I'm saying is these guys that you see in mock drafts for the second round, and the Steelers have 2 in the second round, doesn't mean that they're not going to be any good. But I like Jeff's formula. If corners are deep, then you look at it that way. Then maybe you find that defensive tackle first. But I think there's a lot more than just about 19, and I don't subscribe to that, because if you want to do it based on the underwear Olympics haven't even happened.
Yeah.
No.
So, and we don't get these mock drafts because there's people that you're going to put a first round grade on, and guess what? They're going to tank. How many first round busts are? But they're a can't miss prospect. Look at 2004 when Ben was drafted. Robert Gallery was the second round pick of the Oakland Raiders, and everybody said, this guy can't miss. This is the best offensive lineman for the next 15 years. He didn't make it.
Dave, anything to add?
Yeah, the one thing that Bryan did say there is, the underwear Olympics haven't happened yet, and that's so much changes with not even necessarily what the NFL individual teams think, but kind of the whole feeling of, does a guy shoot up someone's board and drop way down on another? We really aren't going to know a lot until the draft gets closer. And as the guys on What Yin's talking about all the time, they do all these mock drafts and they hardly get any of it right. They really do. I mean, that's why I can cover 16 different mock drafts on a Monday for the 16 weeks from when the Steelers stop playing to when the draft occurs, and I can have a different player every week. Hopefully it still works out again this year, because there's so many different opinions and so many changing things. I just want the Steelers to put themselves in a situation where they don't have to go in a certain way early in the draft, that they really can get the best prospect out there available because they filled everything otherwise.
Yeah, and so Great 103 said, Jeff's got a point, but it's not like we're going to ignore the draft. No, I'm not suggesting the Steelers are going to ignore the draft. What I'm saying is that if they're looking at the way things are shaking out in terms of picking 17th, who's probably going to be gone, and then attacking free agency with knowing some of those certainties, because some of that is a certainty. There's going to be at least 2 quarterbacks gone in the top 10 in this draft, maybe even 3. So I think it's just a way that they can take a more analytical approach to free agency and to positional needs. We know what the needs are on defense. Defensive line, inside linebacker, cornerback. They got to address safety, whether it's Edmonds, KZ, both, none, whatever. They have to figure something out. So I hope that the Steelers are willing to kind of think outside the box a little bit, and maybe Omar Khan, Andy Weidel, and a combination of those two with Mike Tomlin can do just that. I do. It's going to be interesting. You talk about uncertain future with the Steelers. Is there anything more uncertain than that in terms of the fact that it's a general manager, a personnel department that's new, working with Mike Tomlin like this for the first time? We do know, Omar Khan, I said it on my Let's Ride podcast, I'll say it here. He's putting himself out there. He's the only GM at the HBCU Combine. So that's a historically black college or university. He was the only GM there, not the only scout. Every team had scouts there, but he was the only general manager that took the time to go there. Some will say, well, why would he even go in the first place? I say the dude's leaving no stone left unturned. He's going to get his face out there. He wants players to remember that. Bryan, what were your thoughts on that when you heard about Omar Khan?
Why is this a surprise to anybody that Omar Khan was the only one there? We are the Pittsburgh Steelers, home of Bill Nunn.
Yeah.
So Bill Nunn set the culture, and that's why we have the 70 Steelers. How many GMs are getting their butts chewed out right now for not being there by their owners? Yeah, I would be. I'm like, what's wrong with you? You're letting the Steelers go in there and make an impression, and we're going to let these players feel that that they don't matter, man, the Steelers really are looking good on this. And you have a coach in Mike Tomlin that a lot of these guys want to play for anyways, and their GM shows up. And wow, when Mike Tomlin, I think you said it on your show, Jeff, I hope I'm quoting you right, they talk about, or maybe it was Dave, one of you guys mentioned this week that these guys remember that Mike Tomlin showed up and talked the way he treated them in the process, because Mike Tomlin knows who he wants 5 years down the road. I mean, he said that to Pat McAfee. He said that to a number 8, Carl Joseph. He wanted Carl Joseph. He knew he wasn't going to get him, but he said, "Hey, I'll see you someday." And he gave Carl Joseph a chance. So I think it might have been more Dave on his show.
I think it was Jeff.
Yeah, I think it was me.
Hey, at least I listened to both. Yeah. I'm proud of that because you guys get on me for that. So it goes a long way, guys.
Yeah. Dave, any other thoughts?
Not really. I just want to see what they're going to do. March 13th is going to be here before we know it. I don't know if the Steelers are going to be players right there at the very beginning of stuff, but we are really getting down to that time. And that's what's surprising, is that you're like, oh, things will be coming here eventually. We talked at the very beginning of the show, we could believe that it's almost March. And yeah, it's not even halfway through March is when the new league year, the legal tampering period begins. The league year is right on the Ides of March. So it's going to be right around the corner. We're going to really see the shape of this 2023 Pittsburgh Steelers team come into focus more. And I do think it is way more about free agency than it is about the draft. The draft is just the icing on the cake.
Let's play a quick over-under. Okay? This is something we do in season in case you're new to the Steelers preview. Okay, so over-under. The number of moves made prior to the new league year to free up salary cap space. Okay, we know like Dave said earlier, that they're going to have to free up space. They're going to have to. The number of moves, I'm going to set the line at 2.5.
That's
Bryan,
a good one. Wow.
My
number's 3.
That was my number 2. I thought 3. And now remember, I don't see the restructures happening now with Omar Khan.
No,
I don't.
No.
I loved how he did it last year. He did exactly. I'm like, I wish the Steelers would just. And he did it. He restructured TJ Watt at the very end for only as much as they needed. How smart was that?
He's a smart dude.
He is. I say.
So you're taking
3.
the over 2, Dave? You're taking 3?
Yeah, it could. There's a good chance it could be 2. I think it's going to be 2 or 3. But if I had to lean, I'll go 3. I think I know what 2 of them are, but the third one I don't know. I think there'll be one.
Well, we know William Jackson.
Yes.
Who's the other one that you think you know?
I think Gunnar O. I don't see the point in keeping Gunnar O. I mean, they brought him in to be a kick returner, and he lost that job. He doesn't bring enough value otherwise for his cost.
Who else do you think could possibly get the axe?
That's the other one that I don't know that they're going to do. I've been saying, some people are like, Miles Jack. Miles Jack is going to be, first of all, I don't think they're going to do it. I talked about this on Scobro. But if they do, it's going to be just like Joe Schobert, where they aren't going to do it until they already have the next person under contract. They would have to go out and sign an inside linebacker in free agency and then decide that they're going to release Miles Jack, and then it's going to free up that money. So I don't know that's going to be one either. Some people are all about Mitch Trubisky. That's the same kind of deal. I don't see that happening unless Trubisky asked them to do it. And the fact that him and Kenny Pickett are down in Florida throwing with the wide receivers today, even though Gunnar O is one of them, I don't know that that's throughout the Steelers are going to go. Because to me, it would be more about Trubisky wanting to go.
It's going to be interesting for sure. Uncharted waters, that is indeed for sure. Let's do some trivia. Brian, do you have anything?
Yes, I have a quick one. And Jeff, you did an amazing job, and you made my family happy talking about Jack Ham this week on your Wednesday show of Let's Ride, because growing up in Johnstown, PA, he was a hero of everybody, and he was accessible. And, he's still the man there. Number 59.
He still live there?
Oh yeah. I mean, he's in that area. I mean, whether it's State College or but State College is kind of that area too. I know he is a part owner of the Johnstown Tomahawks,
Okay.
the hockey team. So he has some ownership there. So Jack Ham, his number is unofficially retired right now too. Just like number 12 is, like Franco's 32 was for the longest time. But one man wore it right after Jack Ham left for one season. The 3rd round pick in 1984. And he's the only person to wear 59. And I think that Rogers Freivogel realized that he's the equipment manager at the time, realized they made a mistake, and they put reverence on that number and never gave it out again. Who was that man in 1984 that wore that jersey?
I have no idea. I was 1.
Did you say 3rd round pick in 1984?
Dave's cheating. He's looking at the
I'm sorry, 1983.
No,
I
I was
apologize.
going to say, because I don't think they had a 3rd round pick in 1984.
1983.
1983. Was it another defender?
He was a 6'4" linebacker out of San Diego State, 225 pounds, appeared in 16 games in 1984 and 0 starts.
I could not tell you, because I bet you anything it's someone that were like, yeah, I don't even remember they were the Steelers. Because 83 was the Gabe Rivera draft, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Could not tell you anybody else drafted in that draft.
Just like Travis Kelce will say, you put respect to the name of Todd Seabaugh.
Okay.
How in the hell are we supposed to get that? I don't know.
I would have gotten it.
Yeah,
I don't have to look that stuff up. I just know that.
I have very, very well. The first one you're gonna have to take a guess on, but I have 2 different trivia questions that are not anywhere closely related. The first one, if you listened to today's episode of What Yin's Talking About, these guys took one of the key points of their episode and mispronounced the word terribly. How many times did they mispronounce the word, and what word was it?
I don't know how many times. He's trough. Isn't that the word?
The word is trough. Trough. It is pronounced trough, not trow. Trough. That is actually it's a word I use when teaching physics, because waves have crests and troughs and nodes and antinodes. A horse drinks from a trough. And yes, Heinz Field is getting rid of the troughs in the men's bathroom and putting in actual urinals. Any idea how many times that was mispronounced?
You counted?
I did.
Oh gosh. I don't know. Set an over underline.
I know the answer. How am I setting over an underline?
For
us. We don't know.
Guess a number.
Oh my gosh. This is just
17.
25.
13.
Now, could I jump
over
in?
under 10?
Yeah.
And we would have guessed over or under, and you would have said it was 13. And
Yeah,
we're like,
yeah.
oh, let's move on.
No, I would have set the over under at 13, and you would have had to say push.
As the podcast
Why you
producer
don't do
here-
the over unders on our shows?
Exactly.
As the podcast producer here for what I think is an absolutely fantastic show and what Ian's talking
Yeah,
about.
I love both
I
of
am
those guys.
sure that these guys did that by design.
No, I wonder if it's a California thing. I don't know.
I'm just gonna say they did it by design, so don't worry about it. These guys, they do satire and parody. So
Yes, you do.
and they talk like Yinzers. If they're gonna talk like Yinzers talk, I could see, hey,
Trow.
this guy's going downtown. Did you hear about
Step up,
Acrisure
pee in
and
the
that
trow.
with the trowels gone?
I
can
thought it
hear
was that they were,
So-
dropping trow. Is what it was.
Didn't we have a deal that Brian's not allowed to do the Yinzer voice
Yes, we
anymore?
did.
Like, didn't we have that in writing somewhere? I feel like you just broke
Okay,
that.
we
law.
did.
All right, do you want me to do it in Dusty Rhodes' voice?
No. I do have another trivia question,
I
though.
already screwed up Morgan Freeman.
Okay.
So
All right. Here's your other trivia question. Going back and looking at, I've been doing a series of articles of Steelers top draft picks under the Kevin Colbert era by round. So I've been doing a lot of study from the year 2000 up to now. So I went back looking from the year 2000 through the current Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger leads the way by a ton with 247 regular season games started. 247, way up there. There are 5 other players that since the turn of the millennia started over 150 regular season games for the Steelers. Can you name those 5 players?
No.
So they played how many games? Is that what you said?
They started at least 150 games.
Okay. Hines Ward.
He's number 2 with 176.
Okay.
Troy Polamalu.
Troy Polamalu didn't quite make it. He only made it to 142.
Deshae Townsend.
Where's Deshae Townsend on the list?
I was gonna say him. I was gonna say Ike Taylor.
Did he have enough starts? Ike Taylor, he didn't quite. He was 10 short. He was at 140.
Casey Hampton.
Casey Hampton is correct. He was 4th. He is 4th on the list at 164 starts.
I want to say Pouncey, but those injuries scare me.
Yeah, Pouncey, he didn't quite make it either. He was 134 starts.
All right.
Heath Miller is 3rd on the list with 167. So far you're doing good. Ben Roethlisberger, Hines Ward, Heath Miller, Casey Hampton. You've got 2 more
Smith
that were over 150. Aaron Smith is the one that just made it at 152 starts.
So we only have 1 more, right?
1 more. I can give you a hint if you need one.
What about Joey Porter?
Joey Porter. It's
Probably
not Joey Porter.
not.
He had 106 starts.
Okay.
This is starts for the Steelers only. Had these starts for the Steelers. Are you ready for your hint?
Sure.
He was not drafted by the Steelers.
James Ferrier.
It would be James Ferrier with 154 starts.
There you go.
And next year, things going right, there should be 1 more person who joins this club in
Cam Hayward.
Cam Hayward is currently at 148.
Nice. Very good.
There you go.
All right. No final thoughts tonight. We got to get out of here. Dave, why don't you send us out?
You really need me to send you out already? Well, okay. Jeff's final thought is, Dave, send us out. Hey.
See ya. We'll see you next week.
Everybody else gets a little tight.